Welcome back to Stellar Guy, where we dive into your favorite TV shows with detailed recaps and storytelling. Today, we're tackling one of Reba's most memorable episodes, Someone's at the Gyno with Reba. This episode showcases the chaos and humor of family life, with Reba once again finding herself in the middle of everyone's drama. Let's get started. The episode opens with Van happily moving his belongings into Reba's house after his parents kicked him out. He's thrilled to have all his stuff back, his clothes, posters, and most importantly, his lucky comforter, featuring the wildcat colors of orange and black. To Van, these are symbols of who he is, but Reba immediately sees them as clutter. She tries to hide her disapproval when Van starts decorating the room he shares with Cheyenne, Reba's daughter. Van is a character full of enthusiasm and energy, but he's not the most considerate roommate. His style clashes with Cheyenne's, and Reba knows this will lead to problems. Cheyenne, who has been pregnant for several months, is dealing with mood swings and the stresses of young marriage. Reba, as the experienced mother, knows that Cheyenne's patience will run thin with Van's messy habits. She tries to warn Van, hinting that Cheyenne might not be as laid back as he thinks, especially during her pregnancy. However, Van, in his usual optimistic way, believes Cheyenne will love his contributions to the room. His posters of cheerleaders and his messy system of leaving clothes in trash bags on the floor. It's clear that Van still has a lot to learn about marriage and responsibility, but for now, he's just happy to be living with Cheyenne. When Cheyenne finally sees the room, her reaction is, as Reba predicted, less than thrilled. Van has hung up his giant poster of a truck with cheerleaders in the background, and his wildcat-themed comforter is sprawled across the bed. Cheyenne tries to hide her disappointment and tells Van she loves it, but Reba can see through her daughter's forced smile. Reba can tell that Cheyenne is trying to avoid conflict, but she knows that this approach won't work for long. Cheyenne, who has always been a people-pleaser, doesn't want to hurt Van's feelings. She wants to make him feel welcome, but at the same time, she's frustrated with the way their shared space has become dominated by his things. This is one of the early signs that marriage is going to be harder than Cheyenne expected. The honeymoon phase is over, and the reality of living with someone else's habits is starting to sink in. Meanwhile, Reba is trying to juggle everything else in her life, being a single mom, dealing with her ex-husband Brock, and raising her youngest son Jake. She's frustrated because Brock, who is supposed to spend quality time with Jake, keeps showing up late or bringing along his new wife, Barbara Jean. In this episode, Brock takes Jake to a gynecologist appointment with Barbara Jean, which infuriates Reba. This isn't the father-son bonding she had in mind. Reba's frustration with Brock is palpable. She feels like she's the only one taking their responsibilities seriously, while Brock and Barbara Jean act like carefree teenagers. This dynamic highlights the ongoing tension between Reba and her ex-husband, as she constantly has to pick up the slack when he fails to follow through on his promises. Reba's patience is tested as she tries to maintain control of her household while managing the chaos that Brock and Barbara Jean bring into her life. The tension between Van and Cheyenne comes to a head when they have their first real fight as a married couple. Cheyenne has been bottling up her frustration about the way Van has taken over their room, but eventually, she can't hold it in any longer. She confronts Van about his messy habits, telling him that she doesn't want their room to be filled with his junk. Van, taken aback, feels hurt by Cheyenne's criticism. He thought she liked the way he decorated the room, and now he feels like she's rejecting a part of him. This is a pivotal moment in their relationship because it's the first time they've had to deal with real conflict. Van, who is still immature in many ways, doesn't understand why Cheyenne is so upset. To him, it's just stuff. But to Cheyenne, it's a reflection of how their lives are changing and how much harder things are becoming now that they're married and expecting a baby. Reba steps in, trying to mediate the situation. She encourages Cheyenne to be honest with Van about how she feels, reminding her that marriage is about communication. But Cheyenne, feeling overwhelmed, lashes out at her mother instead. In a moment of frustration, she accuses Reba of driving her father away. This accusation stings Reba, who has always tried her best to hold the family together, even after Brock left. Feeling hurt and unsure of how to handle her family's growing problems, Reba decides to go to therapy. In her session, the therapist points out that Reba has a tendency to try to control everything, from her children's lives to her ex-husband's behavior. This need for control, the therapist explains, stems from Reba's fear of chaos. But sometimes, the therapist advises, it's better to let go and allow others to take responsibility for their own lives. This is a difficult lesson for Reba, who has always been the glue that holds her family together. She's used to being the one who fixes things, and the idea of stepping back and doing nothing is terrifying to her. But Reba starts to realize that maybe her constant interference is preventing her children from growing up and learning how to handle their own problems. Taking the therapist's advice to heart, Reba decides to take a step back and let her family fend for themselves for a while. She announces that she's going to the movies and leaves the kids to figure out dinner on their own. Without Reba's guidance, chaos ensues. The kids don't know how to make dinner, and they panic as they realize how much they rely on their mom to keep things running smoothly. Jake, the youngest, is especially worried about what they're going to eat. The idea of having to fend for themselves is foreign to him, and he quickly becomes anxious. Cheyenne, trying to step into a more responsible role, attempts to make dinner, but it's clear that she's in over her head. The family is on the verge of a meltdown when Brock shows up with pizza, saving the day. As they eat pizza, Cheyenne starts venting to Brock about how controlling Reba is and how she feels like her mom is always interfering in her life. Cheyenne blames Reba for many of the problems in her marriage, saying that her mother's constant need to control everything is making things worse. In a surprising turn, Brock steps up to defend Reba. He tells Cheyenne that her mom didn't drive him away, as she thinks. Instead, Brock admits that he wasn't the easiest person to live with, and Reba stuck by him for a long time, doing her best to keep the family together. Brock's defense of Reba makes Cheyenne realize that she has been too hard on her mother and that she's been blaming Reba for things that aren't her fault. Feeling guilty for the way she treated her mom, Cheyenne decides to apologize. She finds Reba sitting outside, reflecting on the day's events, and tells her mom that she was wrong to blame her for everything. Cheyenne admits that marriage is harder than she thought it would be, and that she still needs Reba's help and guidance. Reba, touched by Cheyenne's apology, reassures her daughter that it's okay to make mistakes, and that she'll always be there to support her, even if she's trying to step back and let her children grow. This heartfelt moment between mother and daughter is a turning point in their relationship, as they both realize that they need to communicate better and rely on each other as they navigate the challenges of life. Meanwhile, Van is feeling bad about the fight he had with Cheyenne. He realizes that he needs to be more considerate of her feelings and that marriage isn't just about what he wants. Van decides to take down the posters and clean up the room, making an effort to create a space that both he and Cheyenne can feel comfortable in. When Cheyenne returns, she's surprised to see that Van has made changes. He apologizes for not listening to her earlier and promises to be more thoughtful in the future. Cheyenne, touched by Van's effort, forgives him, and the two reconcile. They realize that marriage is a partnership, and they need to work together to make it work. The episode ends with Reba watching her family come together. She sees that sometimes the best thing she can do is step back and let her children figure things out on their own. Reba knows that she'll always be there for her family, but she also understands that they need the space to grow and learn from their mistakes. Thanks for watching, Stellar Guy. That wraps up our breakdown of Someone's at the Gyno with Reba. If you enjoyed this episode recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. Stay tuned for more in-depth recaps and analysis of your favorite TV shows.